Hey there, it's Gregory from Dapp University. So welcome back to this multi-part tutorial series where I'm showing you how to build ETH swap. This is an instant cryptocurrency exchange where you can buy and sell tokens at a fixed price. All right. So this is the finished product that we're working toward. And this is video number 4, I believe, in the series. And up to this point, what we've done is completed the smart contracts for this tutorial. We've essentially completed the back-end portion of this on the blockchain. We created one smart contract to buy and sell tokens with Ether, the native cryptocurrency of the Ethereum blockchain. And then also a second smart contract that governs the token itself, this custom Dapp token that we created for this tutorial. All right. So we're done with the back end portion of this. Go check out those previous sections if you haven't already. And now what we're going to do is start building out the client side website or user interface, which you see here. So really quickly, if you like this tutorial series, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and click the like button down below. That really helps these videos get found with the YouTube algorithm. And also, if you want to take that next step towards mastering blockchain, then head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. All right, so let's continue on with this, right? This is the finished product that we're working toward. And right now, we have just a really bare bones website. This is the starter kit that we began the project with, and we haven't really modified the code for this at all. And so that's what we're gonna do in this tutorial, at least in this part of the video. So we're going to connect this to the blockchain, all right? We're going to load our account and put it here and wire up this Identicon. And we're going to get started with all of that right now. So a few quick housekeeping tips. If you're just picking up at this point in the tutorial, make sure you have your node packages installed. You can just do that with npm install, right? That makes sure that you have all the dependencies on your computer to run the project. Make sure that you have your web server running. I've got mine here in a separate terminal tab, but you can start your web server with npm run start. All right. Next, make sure that Ganache is running. This is your development blockchain. All right. Make sure it looks like this. And you see your accounts with Ether. And then finally, make sure that your completed smart contracts are migrated to Ganache, as in you've actually put them on the blockchain. And you can do that like this: a truffle migrate -- reset. Okay, so again, yeah, I've done all those commands, so you don't have to, that's why I didn't click enter, but you should if you haven't done those yet. All right, so let's go ahead and open up the project again and kind of take a quick tour of the client-side application before we start modifying it. We'll go to source, components, all right, and go to app.js. And here's the main component that we'll use for the tutorial. We'll start here. You can see the code for this page right here. Go here. All right, Dapp University Starter Kit, Dapp University Starter Kit. So we're going to basically just start editing this. I'm going to clear out all the code inside of here. Let's just do this and make sure we can actually update it and make changes. Forgot that. And we'll just say, hello world. Awesome. And we'll refresh the page. And there we go. Boom. And we'll go ahead and take the logo out. And we'll remove it from the top as well. And there we go. Okay, so we've got a fresh palette to work with. And now what we're going to do is go ahead and connect the application to the blockchain. Well, actually, before we do that, let me make a quick mention of React.js and kind of how it works. So you don't have to be experienced with React in order to follow along with this tutorial. I think you can pick up a lot about React just by watching me code and building something in React yourself. So basically, React.js is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. All right. So what it does is it organizes your code into these things called components. And that's what you see here. You see class app extends component. All right, we're pulling in component right here from the React library, which we installed inside of our package.json file. Okay. So basically, these JavaScript files, end in JS right here, they actually mix HTML code and JavaScript code. Okay, so you can see this is JavaScript right here. Class extends component. Render is a function in JavaScript. It has a return, and inside the return, this is all HTML code that we see here on the web page, right here. All right. So inside the HTML code, you can also execute JavaScript. So if I undo like what I did a minute ago, you see this source logo, right? Or if I go back even a little further, yeah, source logo. Basically, these curly braces, anything inside the curly braces is JavaScript essentially. So this logo right here is a variable that was imported right here from the image. And basically, this is just the path to the image. Okay. So I'm going to redo all that. Well, sorry. Let me just kill that and manually redo it. Go back to page here. All right. So yeah. Anyways, I'll take another quick tour of React. So it's component based. Yeah, this is what a component looks like. You can see this class hello message that looks a lot like our app component. Let's see here. So the next thing is React State. All right. This is going to be a critical concept to understand as we build this tutorial. Essentially, React State is sort of like a database, kind of, on the front end. It's a place where all the data for the application goes. So, for example, if you were going to build a to-do list in React only, right? You can see a to-do list. Well, where do you store all the to-do items on the to-do list, right? If I say item 1 and click add item 1 and say item 2, like where do these go? Well, they get stored in React's state object, which kind of acts like a little tiny database, right? It's not persistent. If you refresh the page, everything goes away. But it's a little temporary kind of database-ish object inside the React component. All right, so you can see it right here. This is the React state object right here. Say this.state equals this object. And that's where you'd store like all the items in the to-do list. All right. So for our tutorial, we're going to make pretty heavy use of the React state object to store all the data that comes back from the blockchain, like the person's balance, how many tokens they hold, how much ether they have, and their account address and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So let's see here if there's anything else to make note of. I think that's a pretty good overview to get started. We'll see all this stuff in play, and I'll reference the React documentation again a little bit later when we wire up our component. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's connect our website to the blockchain. All right, so in order to turn this application into a blockchain application, two things need to happen. All right, so the first thing is connect app to blockchain. And then second is connect browser to blockchain, right? So even if you connect your app to the blockchain, if your browser can't use the app with the blockchain, it's no good, all right? So we're going to do each of those things right now. First, let's actually do the browser to the blockchain. That's the easier part. And it has to be done first before we can really successfully make use of this part. So we're going to do this backwards. All right. So in order to connect your browser to blockchain, we're going to use MetaMask. All right. You installed this at the very, very beginning of the tutorial. Okay. So make sure you've got MetaMask set up properly. Go back and revisit that section if you haven't already. All right. So basically, if you open this little Fox icon, you'll probably see account 1 right here. If this is your first time using MetaMask, you probably connected to the main net right here. So the first thing you want to do, let me explain MetaMask. Essentially, your web browser by default doesn't talk to the blockchain. You need a special browser extension in order to do that. And that's what MetaMask does. So this is an Ethereum wallet. All right, wallets are how you connect to the blockchain. And what you want to do first is connect to the correct blockchain, okay? So if you click this button up here, yours probably says main Ethereum network. You want to do custom RPC, all right? And we can call this Ganache and say http:// port 7545. All right, so I have already done this, so it won't let me save it. But anyways, just click save. So then go and select the instance you just created. I'll go ahead and select Ganache here. All right, so once you've done that, you will have correctly connected to your development blockchain. That's this right here. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is import this account right here, the very first account that's important, into MetaMask. So you'll click this little key icon right here. So show your private key. All right. You can copy it, click OK. So make sure you don't actually use this to store any real money because everyone who's watched this video will have seen it. And then go over here. go to MetaMask. Click, let's see here, go to accounts, import account. And then make sure this says private key right here on select type. And then paste in your private key and click import. So it's going to tell me I've already done it because I have. But you should basically, see success, and you should see your account connected right here. All right, so once that's successful, you should see an Ether balance right here, and your Ganache network selected. Okay, so that's step one, right? Connecting your browser to a blockchain. So MetaMask does that. And then the second thing is connecting your app to the blockchain. So we're going to use a special library for that. All right, called Web3.js. And you've already seen Web3 a little bit in this tutorial whenever we built out the tests, right? If you go back to, let's see here, test, test ETH swap test, you'll see, let's see here, Web3 utils, two-way. You'll also see like Web3, let's just search for it, Web3, ETH get balance, stuff like that. So we've already used Web3 a little bit. But we're going to use it on the client side in order to connect to the blockchain. That's what it does. And basically how Web3 works is it works with the concept of an Ethereum provider. So basically, MetaMask connects to an Ethereum node to talk to the blockchain. That's what it does with Ganache. And then MetaMask exposes that as a provider to the Web3.js library. So basically, it's just that's the point of connection that you can start using in your application. So let's go ahead and get started doing that. So what I'm going to do is go to my main component here. Go to the app.js file. All right, go here. And the first thing we want to do is import Web3 into this file. Okay, so this is how we do it inside of React. We use this import here. And we do like this. Import capital Web3 from lowercase Web3 with single quotation marks around it. And I'm going to go ahead and kill these semicolons just for consistency. We don't need them. All right. And so basically we can load up Web3 inside of our component like this. We'll create a new function. So here's this render function. We'll create a new function here called load Web3. Say load Web3. All right. And inside of here is where we're going to pull the Ethereum provider from MetaMask and expose it to our application. All right. So essentially, I don't want to reinvent the wheel here. I'm basically just going to use MetaMask's own instructions on how to do this. So MetaMask just tells us, straight up how to do this. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here. Here is their suggested code on how you connect to MetaMask with your Web3 provider, okay? With Web3 library. So I'm just going to take this and modify it and put it straight into the application. So don't necessarily worry if you don't understand everything that's going on here. This is just kind of like what they tell us to do, okay? So essentially what it does is it looks for two different things. One is window.ethereum and window.web3. And this is basically for modern web browsers, they'll have this, and legacy web browsers will have this. And if you don't have MetaMask installed, we'll show the user an alert, non-Ethereum browser connected, please use MetaMask. All right. So the next thing we want to do is make this asynchronous, support the await keyword, right? So we have to do async. So now we want to call this. So in order to connect to this, I'm going to create a new method here called component will mount. All right. And then inside of here, I'm going to say await this.load Web3. Oh, sorry. I can't code today, guys. And then for using the await keyword here, we also have to make this asynchronous, async. And then I'm going to say console.log, let's say window.web3. All right. So we'll do that. Go back to our project here. And then open this, go to the console, and there we go. There's our Web3 instance. Awesome. So Web3 is what we're going to use inside of our application to connect to the blockchain. If you go back to our tests, you'll see we can do stuff like get the user's current balance, right? Web3 ETH get balance. We can do all kinds of stuff. Okay. So make a quick mention, this component will mount. This is a special lifecycle method in React that runs whenever this component is going to get mounted to the React virtual DOM. So it gets called before render. So essentially, before we lay out, what it's saying is before we lay out all this HTML content on the page, do this. All right. We want to wait for this to finish before all this happens. Let's continue on here. I'm going to remove this console logging statement. So now what I want to do is create another function that will actually import all the data into the application that we need that's currently stored on the blockchain. All right. So we'll call this wait this.load blockchain data. All right. And then we'll create this function here. It'll be asynchronous, async load blockchain data. All right. Make this a function. So the first thing I want to do is store window.web3 to a variable for shorthand. So we have to keep retyping window, which we're going to call web3 a lot in this function throughout the rest of this tutorial. But the first thing I want to do is actually fetch the account that we're connected with inside MetaMask. All right. So we want to take this account and pull it out so we can use it in our application. So if you look at our finished product, right, it shows our account here. It reads the balance, the Ether balance, and it also reads the token balance. So we need this account to put all this information on the page. That's sort of the first step. So if you look at the Web3 documentation here, this is how we fetch the accounts from MetaMask. All right, it's just Web3 ETH get accounts. All right, so it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and we can do that just like this. We'll say const accounts equals await Web3 ETH get accounts. All right. And then we'll say console.log accounts. All right, so let's go to our app. Okay, so accounts is not defined. Looks like I just made a typo here. All right, there we go. So here's the account that we're connected with in MetaMask. All right, so 2AEC, right? 2AEC. So that looks correct. And you'll see this is inside of an array. So really this is could be multiple accounts, but there's only one inside of here. And the first one is the account that we want to connect to. So we can just fetch that out of the array. You can just say here's an array with, a different array, foo, bar, baz. And this is an array. So if we want the first item out of this array, basically, array equals. If we want the first item out of this array, we just say array 0. And there you go. So we'll do the same thing with the accounts. We'll just do it like this, accounts 0. And then there you go. So, arrays are 0-based index. So the first item is 0, the second item is 1, third item is 2, etc., etc. So next we want to do is actually store this in the React state. All right. So if you go back to our React documentation here, I talked about this briefly earlier. The state is how we keep track of all the data. And in this case, we're going to store the blockchain data inside the state. So let's follow React's own instructions on how to set up the state. So I'm just going to copy this. This is what it tells us to do. All right. Just above the render function. I'm going to paste this in. All right. So take out the semicolons here just for consistency's sake. Kill this because we don't need that. All right. So this is basically what we need to do. We need to take, let's see here. Sorry. We just call this super because what it does is it takes the constructor function. Well, sorry. Let me back up. The constructor function is just like the constructor function we saw in our smart contracts. If you go back to contracts, source contracts, ETH swap, we have a constructor function inside of there as well. So this is the, function that gets run whenever the smart contract's created. Similarly, this is the function that gets run whenever the component is created. All right. And, we're inheriting from a different component here or extending. So what this does is it calls the constructor function on the component that we are extending, and then we execute our own code inside of here. Okay. So what this does is it sets up the default state. All right. So in this case, we want to say the default account is going to be equal to an empty string. Okay. So then what we want to do is actually set this value. All right. And we do that with a special function inside React like this. We say this set state. and then we pass it an object, okay? And we say account, and we'll say accounts 0. All right. And then what we can do is log this back out. We can fetch it back out from state. And say, let's see, this state dot count, and it should be the same thing. All right, boom, there you go. It's the same. Awesome. So what we can do, the important thing to like note is that we set this state here so that we can access this data in other places in the application. So for example, I can call console log, this .state account down here in the render function, right? Which I couldn't do earlier without putting it in the state. So if I do that, hit refresh, it still works, right? Perfect. All right. So now what I want to do is fetch the balance, okay? So we've got the account from MetaMask, and eventually we want to show this Ether balance here. And we can do that next inside of our account, inside of our application. So we've seen that before, actually. So if you go back to the tests, ETH swap test, say get balance, ETH get balance. All right, look here. We checked the ETH swap balance before. We did Web3 ETH get balance. So let's just copy this from the test, since you've seen it before, and do it inside of their front-end application. All right, so instead of ETH swap balance, we'll just call this const balance. Or we'll say ETH balance. And this is going to be the balance of this account, right? Not ETH swap. It's going to be the user who's connected to the application. We'll say this.state account. And we'll store it to the state, just like we did with the other one. Say this set state. And we'll say ETH balance equals ETH balance. Now I'm going to show you a pretty cool thing in JavaScript. In this version of JavaScript in ES6, if you have a key and a value of a variable type, let me explain that better. If you have a key that has a variable value and they have the exact same name, you can just do this. You don't even need the key or the colon. You can just do that. Okay, so that's the same as doing this because they have the same name. And you couldn't do that here because it's not the same. Okay, so now let's set the default state, and let's say the default balance, ETH balance, is 0. Right. And then let's do console log this state.eth balance. All right, there you go. Boom. So you see that looks right. So 97.873 Ether. All right, so you don't see a decimal place here. And that's okay. Remember that I explained in the previous videos that Ether is expressed in Wei when you move it around. So it's the smallest denomination. So basically, it's like a penny for Ethereum, a really tiny penny. And it's got, 18 decimal places after the 0. You don't use decimals, so that's why you see this big number. Okay. All right, so now what I want to do is show the account that we just loaded on the page. All right, we want to put it up here, just like this finished product. Okay. And we also want to add this cool icon that's generated automatically with our Ethereum address. So the first thing I want to do is actually move the nav bar to its own component. All right, so you're going to see a really nice benefit of using React components is that we can create more components just like this one that are reusable in other parts of our application. All right, so I'll create a new file like this. New file. And we'll say navbar, capital N, navbar.js. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is just copy all this. And then do this, take out these two, all right, and then take out pretty much all of this. All right, so we got our render function here, and then we'll just take the navbar part, all right, and then do this, and then we'll rename this app to navbar. Oops, there, navbar. All right, that's pretty much all we need to do for this component for now. Now let's go ahead and import it into our project here. Or sorry, our main component. So you can do this. You can say import navbar from ./N navbar. Oops, sorry, navbar. Save that. And then let's go, let's see here. Let's just go back to the website and make sure that everything looks right. All right, let's go here and then just click refresh, and nothing changed. That's okay. We didn't actually render out the nav bar on this page. I just want to make sure that it imported properly without any errors, so it did. And tell you what, let's go ahead and change the name here so that we can see our new nav bar on the page. We'll just call this ETH swap. All right, save that. Refresh the page. So we don't see ETH swap yet. That's okay because we haven't moved the nav bar down here. So now what we want to do is take out all this code right here and just say, make this symbol greater than symbol or less than symbol, sorry. Navbar, capital N, navbar, and then /. There we go. Awesome. Now we should see ETH swap. Boom, there we go. ETH swap. So there's our new nav bar on the page. So what we've done here is created a new React component, right? Like this. Here's a new nav bar and its own component. And we've imported it, and then we've rendered it out on the page and reduced, the amount of code that we see here down to this one line, okay? So now what we want to do is show the account here on the page. So in order to do that, we need to pass the account down to here. So basically what we've done is we've loaded the account, we've set it in the React state that we defined here. But the problem is this component right here doesn't necessarily know about the state for this component. Like the state just belongs to this component. So we can pass it down like this. We can say account equals, then do some curly braces, this.state.account. All right. And then inside of the nav bar here, we can render the nav bar on the page, we can render the account on the page like this. We can just say, let's just do a paragraph here for now. And then we can say curly braces, this.props.account. All right, so here we go. And there we go. We can see it. There you go. Awesome. So let me explain this. Whenever we use these curly braces, we're basically executing JavaScript inside of the HTML code here. And this .props, right, is how we fetch data passed down to this component. So we say this.props.account is this right here. So we said account, this.state.account gets turned into this.props.account. Okay. So props is just short for properties, I believe. And this is how you define the component's properties. Like you add a new property here. And you saw props here whenever we set up the constructor as well. All right. So now the next thing we want to do is add a better, we want to render the component out on the page. Now the next thing we want to do is render the account on the page in a more pleasing way. So right now you can barely see it. It's the same text color. So I'm going to basically delete this and add some markup that looks like this. Okay. So this is basically just creates an unordered list with Bootstrap that's going to make it look a lot nicer. All right. So let's save that. You can just fetch this from the code down in the description below if you don't want to code this out step by step, right? So there you go. We can see the account here looks a little bit nicer, all right? And then the last thing we want to do is add this icon here, all right? So this is the identicon that's going to correspond to the account itself, okay? So how do we do that? Well, if you look at the identicon library that we saw at the very beginning, it shows us how to do that. So it shows you how to do it. Basically, you just pass it a hash. In this case, this is going to correspond to the Ethereum address. And then, here you go. You can see this image with the width, height. And then for the source attribute, it's going to have this data. All right. and we're gonna concatenate the string and pass in the data this way. So I'm gonna kind of create a better version of this, like this, that we're gonna use in our application. So don't worry if like you don't fully understand what's happening with this library. That's okay. You can just kind of go back and reflect upon this later, try to get a better understanding of it. So for now, what I'm going to do is just import the Identicon library inside this component. All right, like this. And then I'm going to create a way to list it out on the page. So just below the ending LI tag, before the ending UL tag, I'm going to put this in here. All right. So basically, if the account exists, then we want to show this image. All right. And this image is going to be the Identicon. So we give it a width, a height, and then we create this source attribute. All right. That looks like this. All right. And then we pass in the account, this.props.account. All right. Let's go back to the page and see if it worked. All right. It did work. It looks kind of funny. So let's just fix it. So we need to move this inside the LI. So sorry about that. Let's try it again. And boom, there we go. Awesome. It worked. So it looks just like our finished product, which I accidentally just closed. So very cool. So basically what it does is it takes your Ethereum address and then it creates this icon. And if we change accounts in MetaMask, you'll see the account change. Refresh the page and boom, there we go. We get a new Identicon. All right, so that's it for this video, or this part of the tutorial series. We've connected the application to the blockchain. We've wired up our web browser to talk to the blockchain. We've loaded the account. We've loaded the balance. We've learned about React.js. You've gotten a lot in this section, right? So congratulations for making it this far. So in the next video, what we're going to do is continue building out the project and implementing the buy tokens feature that we created with the smart contracts on the back end. Now we're going to wire up the client-side application to actually talk to those smart contracts. Let's see here. Talk to the smart contracts and purchase the tokens. All right. So as always, if you haven't already, click the like button down below and subscribe to the channel. And if you like this tutorial series and you want to keep on learning blockchain, becoming a blockchain master, a pro blockchain developer, then head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. All right. Until next time, thanks for watching Dapp University.